My relationship with my dad is evolving. So my name is Giana Darvell. I am 20 years old. I am a junior public relations major here at Oakwood University. I'm doing that because, I don't know, I feel like communication has just kind of become my passion, and then relationships with people are my passion too. So that kind of fused the two things. And my parents both were really emphatic about me and my siblings kind of making sure that we had experience and we had shadowing opportunities and things like that when we were younger to kind of figure out what we wanted to do once we got here. So my path has been pretty clear since getting here because I found my passion pretty early. And my dad was actually one of the people that fostered that. Like, he made sure that I had a camera that I could, do communication stuff for, and was always telling people, oh yeah, my daughter does this, my daughter does that, so that I had lots of opportunities even when I didn't necessarily want it. But it's definitely been helpful because it makes me a little bit more of a go-getter now because I see all of the opportunities that are available, and kind of like him, I can't help but, go for them. So my dad, like me, is one of 5 children. He is the second to youngest. He has 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Yeah, I think so. He grew up in Long Island, New York, and I don't know, he told us a lot of stories about growing up, and some of them seem more fabricated than others. But it was a mix between being on a farm with like cows and stuff and being like right by a park that had crack needles. It was just, there was a lot apparently that was going on, but he was raised in a pretty devout SDA household. Both of his parents were in the medical field, so that was kind of a big thing. I don't know, he always talks about how he was kind of exposed to a lot when he was younger, where he came from this devout SDA household, but the same way that anybody else, like when you grow up in certain areas, you see some stuff. So I know him to be someone who's always tried to, be on the positive end on that type of thing, but I know he has wisdom and he has some street smarts. So after growing up there, I know he went to Blue Mountain Academy, so he went to boarding school for high school, and then he came here to Oakwood and kind of thrived. He majored in biology, and he married my mommy on the day that they graduated, and then they moved to Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I'm from, the day right after so that he could start med school. But what's really interesting is that very soon after he started med school, I can't tell you the exact year because I don't remember, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. Kind of figured out it wasn't his path, kind of figured out that it was more so someone else's dream than it was his, and he decided not to continue anymore. And I don't know that I'm as strong and faithful to the Lord as my mother is, because she was like, okay, so that's what we're doing. And he kind of went to slinging packages in the hub for FedEx, and since then he's worked his way up where now he's doing management and is an executive director there with FedEx. He's the coolest dude ever. Everyone thinks he's so cool because he travels the world and goes to all these really cool places and meets all of these incredible people. And I just had the utmost respect for him because he didn't follow somebody else's path for him. Like, he was respectful and he was wise in the steps that he took, but he didn't let anybody else define who he is. And I don't know, I feel like that's the most inspirational thing about him, and it kind of makes me feel like I can do anything. So that's my daddy. See, my memories are always like feelings. I don't remember specific things very often, but I could definitely say my most predominant memory, like what stands out the most in my head, is every morning before my dad went to work or before I went to school or work, if I went before him. He always prayed with me. He prayed over me and kind of checked in, made sure I was okay before I left. And, just was like, hey, if you need anything, like, let me know. I'll see you later. I love you. And then any time that I was at home and my dad would get home, we'd hear the door or the lock turn on the door to the garage, or we'd hear the garage open even, and somebody would go, Daddy's home. And then as soon as he walks in, everyone would go, oh my goodness, Daddy's home. And we would go and hug him. I'm 20 years old. I still do that every single time my dad comes home. I don't know, it just kind of became all of our thing as far as like daddy's girls. But I don't know. He just kind of lit up every time that happened. So we just never stopped. I feel like my dad plays like the TV sitcom dad role, as far as he is the head of the household. He is, the driving comedic factor or force behind our family. He's the priest of our home. He makes sure that all of us are kind of living our lives in a way that will get us to where we want to go. I don't know. My dad was never unattached. He was never uninvolved with what was going on in our lives. And I noticed a lot now that I'm older just how involved he is. Because when I was younger, I just saw my mom. I was homeschooled growing up. So my mother was my primary everything. And with my dad being at work, I did feel a sort of distance with him just because I was so spoiled, honestly, with having such a great intimate relationship with my mom that it was harder for me to connect with my dad in an identical way, just because my mom and I are super touchy-feely and in our emotions, and just everything is just everything, and my dad is not that way. So it was hard for me to connect with him in a way that I immediately felt as fulfilling, but he was never unavailable. So I remember particularly, let's see, it was probably late middle school, early high school. That was kind of when my family started doing like Sundays or family days. We're gonna go and we're gonna do something. And even before that, my dad would make lunch on Sundays for the family. So that was either pasta or it was hoagies. There was no in between. Those are the only two options. But that just kind of demonstrated my dad, he was making an effort not to be distant. He was making an effort to be present in the way that his 5 homeschool kids needed him to be, just because the way that love is translated to us is different than it is to anybody else. And it's an incredible blessing having someone who's willing to speak that language that you need. I mean, it's something that a lot of people don't have. So it's something that I just respect so much about him. I don't know, I remember going on a trip with my dad. We were in Atlanta for something. We have a lot of family down there. And he decided that he wanted to go like 45 minutes in the opposite direction of where everybody was to go get Jamaican food. And I and my dad have the exact same food taste. So anytime my dad gets something, I just tell him to get me whatever he's getting because we like the same things. So I decided I was gonna go on this 45-minute little road trip down to this Jamaican restaurant so that I could spend a little time with my dad. I was like, okay, I'm kind of like a mom's girl at this point. Like, she and I are basically the same person, but I want to be able to connect with my dad in a different way, because this was like right around that age where it's the transition between like puberty and adulthood, and like everything's all wonky, everything's going crazy, trying to figure out who you are and where you stand and how that fits in with your life and your family and your goals, just doing too much. But I remember at that time in my life, I felt really distant from my dad, and I had a lot of unfounded resentment about him not being present and him being a spectator and da-da-da-da-da-da. I just remember all of these internalized things that I felt just as a result of my own insecurities and my own trying to figure life out. But I remember that for me was a big marking thing. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go on this trip with my dad. I'm gonna learn more about him. Let's see how this goes. So I remember we were driving and I found out that my dad hates peas, and that just all these little random things that I would never have thought to ask him. And then I also found out that my dad actually had learning difficulties in such a way that he internalizes information differently than most people. So for him, studying was difficult. For him, even just comprehension was difficult because there were just some things that he didn't get off the bat. And I remember I started crying because I had been having trouble connecting with my dad. Just because I felt like he didn't understand me. So as you see me tearing up right now, like, this is how I am. I feel everything very deeply and very quickly, and then it passes and all of that. And my dad is not that way. My dad's first reaction is to fix things. And he's a great fixer. He's very effective in that. It's his job. He's helpful for that. But I remember specifically at that time in my life, I just wanted somebody to listen. So my mom had become that person for me. But as that relationship with my mom grew, it felt like that relationship with my dad was kind of slipping through the cracks because he was giving me my space to figure myself out. But, you know, as a kid, you're torn between wanting space and wanting, you know, your family. So I just remember crying because all I could think was, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. And he actually likes me. Because I was dead convinced that my dad didn't like me because I was a little crybaby. But that wasn't it at all. It was just that my dad didn't know how to talk to me because he didn't want to hurt me and he wanted to help me. But I mean, who's prepared to raise a whole bundle of emotions? So I just remember that being a breaking point in our relationship. Not a breaking point, a turning point. That was a turning point in our relationship just because, I don't know, it gave me a little bit of motivation to take an extra step in making sure that I had clearly articulated what it was that I thought or what it was that I felt or anything like that to him before I jumped to the assumption that he just didn't get it or he just assumed this about me or he just whatever, because that in my selfish little heart was where I jumped because I couldn't fathom me not being an effective communicator when that wasn't the case. Like, you have to meet people where they are, especially when they're so willing to meet you where you are. And so it's that I feel like was, like I said, the turning point of our relationship where from then on, I'm still not gonna, you know, argue my point down and, you know, spend a whole lot of time trying to convince him of something if our perspectives are different or anything like that. But I don't think since that point I've ever internalized anything that my dad has said or done as me thinking that he didn't care about me or that he didn't love me very well and very deeply, just because I know him to be a man of God and a man whose passion is his family. So that's something that I respect about him immensely, and I don't know, I'm just so grateful for him. I think I told somebody once, it was some dude that was trying to talk to me and was trying to act like I was one of those girls who was just looking for a free meal or something like that. And I was like, my daddy drives a Beamer. I do not need a free lunch. And I feel like that is kind of really indicative of what my relationship with my dad is like, and that my dad is such a great provider and he loves me and my siblings so well that there is nothing that anyone can offer me or, you know, there isn't anything that I'm looking for that my father hasn't already provided. So that's not to say that no one will ever live up to my dad, but there are some pretty high expectations there and some pretty well-deserved standards, I think, that are instilled from a place of being well-loved by the people who were made to love you well. So this is a weird struggle to have, but I am so well-loved by my father that I don't even know what I'm supposed to expect from a guy because obviously whatever future husband romantic relationship looks like, that it's not going to look the same as my relationship with my dad. But I'm set up in this really weird position where I really don't need you. I have my daddy, so I'm okay. But knowing that I want someone who mirrors those qualities that my dad has, and not 100% knowing what that looks like in everyone. Because as much love as I've received, I also received a lot of, you know, guidance and relationship advice and things like that. And recognizing that everyone expresses love differently and expresses qualities differently and things like that. So I've run into a lot of issues where I assumed people were expressing certain qualities because they had similar mannerisms to my dad, but they didn't have the same qualities and strength of character that he did. So it's, like I said, it's a weird struggle because it's like my dad's so great that nobody else is quite as great. But, and it's trying to figure out how to navigate relationships, because as great as my dad is, he's not perfect. So trying to figure out what qualities that my dad has that I don't want to put up with in someone that I'm with in the future or that are absolutely crucial. So I don't know. It's this weird position of having a fantastic role model that's also human and seeing his humanity and having to navigate that for myself and my future relationships. It's just a weird space to be. So my dad, I don't know, like I said, he's my biggest inspiration and my biggest supporter. So just as far as driving me towards doing everything that I'm doing, of course my mom's in there too, but it's like my dad is, I don't know, I just respect his drive so much that it makes me want to do that for myself. It makes me kind of just want to go as hard as I can and, have the balance, have family life, have all of that as well, but really do something that I can one day look back on and go, yeah, I lived a really full, cool, exciting, important, and impactful life, because that's what my dad has done. He's the dad that everybody wants, and that causes me to come from such a place of privilege that oftentimes I don't even understand, because it sets you up in a way that you don't expect. So when it comes to I don't know, how you process your emotions, when it comes to how you interact with people, when it comes to relationships, things, all of that, you're coming from a place where, like I said, you're not in need and you're more available to love freely. You're more able to meet people where they are, because that's what you're accustomed to from the people who love you the most. So I feel like just overall, just who my father is, it's shaped me into the person you see in front of you. It gave me an unshakable confidence in who I am, in my relationship with God, in my faith in humanity. He's cool. He's just super cool. My dad was really passionate about my siblings and I kind of finding out what we wanted to do in life before we got to college, and making sure that we were set up very well before we got there. Because with his career path, he was on a path to medicine and to biology for years, and then only discovered that wasn't what he wanted until too late, and had to pay back bills for a degree he never earned. So he never wanted that for us. So just as far as being successful professionally, I can only attribute that to my parents. I can only say thank you so much for being so passionate about making me get off my butt and go intern at places when I could have just been, going to classes or, doing church announcements and learning, just learning those things that people kind of skim over. But now that I'm older, having that foundation is so helpful. So just in professional life, it's funny, my dad was trying to get me to intern with his company this summer. He was like, well, we could have lunch together. And I was like, no, I don't want to have lunch together at FedEx. But I knew that if nothing else, he was going to look out for me. So yeah, just having that support system and having, somebody motivating you who was knowledgeable of the arena that I'm trying to go into, that was extremely helpful. And he was willing to connect me with anyone that he knew that could possibly have any little thing that had to do with what I wanted to do. Just always willing to be a resource and always willing to be what I needed from him as I kind of figure out my own career path. And then as far as, I don't know. See, my dad also helped me toughen up. I'm a pretty emotional being. I get it from my mommy. And he kind of taught me that you have to get over that if you want to do anything in life, because your family are the people who allegedly are the ones that treat you with the kitty soft gloves, and the real world will beat you down and beat you up and spit you back out. So my dad definitely didn't do that, but he was very clear and loving, but clear that I couldn't just cry my way out of a situation, or I couldn't break down and expect it all to be fixed later. Like, I have to be proactive about remedying situations. I have to learn good conflict resolution skills. I had to, kind of do the work, and with him motivating me to do that and him showing me that I would be successful with those tools, it really motivated me to grow up. It helped me figure out how to get over myself and get to work, which, I don't know, I feel like I had the emotional intelligence, but I needed a kick in the pants to be able to go, okay, I want to be a boss, so I need to start acting like it. And my dad 100% prepares me to be a boss every day. I want to be a parent that is a lot like my parents, but my dad also kind of has his old-fashioned type ways where, like, he'll probably not be the happiest that I'm wearing hoops for this and, things like that. But I remember, I remember when I got home Thanksgiving break and I showed my dad my tattoo. So I have a tattoo on my ankle. So I have an evergreen tree. And I never wanted to be in a position where I was hiding anything from my parents, because we did have an open and honest relationship, which is something that I want with my kids. But I remember he was eating his food and watching his TV in his room, and I told my little brother I was going to go tell him, and he was like, oh, I want to watch, because he didn't know what my dad was going to do. I was the first person in the family to get a tattoo. No idea what that was going to happen. So I went in and I was like, Dad, I have something to show you. And he was like, okay, whatever. And so I was like, look. And he just about spat his food out. He was so surprised. I was like, so this is what I got, and this is why I got it, and this is why it's important to me, and I just wanted to make sure that you knew. And he was like, well, I don't like you defacing your body, but you're an adult and it's your choice. And he went back to eating his food, and I stood there for a second, just kind of shook. But it's just an example of the way that my dad has grown with us as a parent, because he's in a position where he's able to see us and recognize us as adults with legitimate thoughts and feelings and decisions that he can advise upon, but he doesn't try to force what he believes on us, especially as we're now adults. But I do appreciate that he gave us a very solid foundation of biblical knowledge and of, relational knowledge and love and support and all of that as we grew up, and was very structured and helped us, have respect for ourselves and others in our family, but could kind of grow with us. So that's the kind of parent that I want to be. And I might do things differently. I might not spank my kids, but I mean, I turned out okay. That's about it. Fatherhood is a big job. I don't know, it shapes whoever you father largely into who they're going to be. And it's not for everybody, so there really should be a lot more responsibility about the goings-on of becoming a father. But I don't know, having positive fathers and having positive men who are in that position is so important, and especially when it comes to Black fathers, just because you don't find that relationship anywhere else. You can have other people kind of step in and try to live up to that standard or that expectation or things like that, but there's nothing quite like having the man who you are half of love you fully and embrace you for who you are and support you and motivate you. It can make or break a person. It's not the only thing that matters, let's be clear, but for some people, it's really the difference between embracing who they are and going forward in confidence and not. So it's a responsibility that really should be taken seriously. And I really appreciate the fact that my dad did, and that he prioritizes it above just about all else. So, yeah. Dear Dad, comma. Dear Dad, you are one of my best friends, and I think the world of you. I appreciate who you are and the way that you love and the way that you just are. I appreciate your sense of humor, and the way that you motivate each one of us towards becoming who we want to be and embracing whatever idea of who we want to be that we present at any given time. Thank you for dealing with all this and just being willing to step in the gap for anybody, for being a positive role model and figure to all of my friends and anyone who has ever needed you. You're a rock. You're awesome. I love you. And I miss you when you're not around. So I can't wait till our next adventure. Ugh. I wasn't planning on crying. I cried a little bit. I love my daddy. He's so cool.